it all began right here in Dallas, Texas. At the age of 17, I ran away from home. After a few months of living homeless on the streets and using drugs, I found myself working in a strip club. And I hated what I was doing. And I wanted to get away from there. I should have been in high school. I ran into this guy that seemed cute, and I thought he would be my boyfriend, and I thought I would get out. And he began trafficking me. And I had multiple traffickers over the course of 10 years. I wasn't able to escape until the federal authorities finally became involved. I was arrested and sentenced because I was too scared to tell on my trafficker. It wasn't until he turned himself in to serve that same prison sentence that I knew I had 20 months to start my life over before he hunted me down and killed me like he always told me he would. I kind of floundered for a while. I went right back to that 17-year-old girl I was when I met him and began experimenting with drugs again and not processing any of the trauma that I had been through. I blamed myself. I thought it was my choice. I thought somehow that I just made really bad choices and that I got what I deserved. Not looking back and seeing, no, that 17-year-old girl that met that 37-year-old man and I was manipulated and abused and controlled from day one, that was never my choice. It wasn't until I became pregnant in 2011 that I finally realized I needed to change my life. I wanted to come back to Texas, and so God made a way. And I moved back to Texas on January 7th, 2012. 2 hours after I got here, I went to church. They showed me grace and love, gave me warm hugs, and taught me how to love myself for the first time.
Rebecca's story is one of many, repeated far too often, and not in some faraway place, but right here in our own backyard.
As many as 400 minors are trafficked on the streets of Dallas most every night. That's 70,000 a year in Texas. 234,000 are victims of labor trafficking with a $6.6 billion economic impact.
The numbers are staggering, but the human toll is what is the real tragedy. Understanding that human tragedy is the first step.
What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is the exploitation of a person through force, fraud, or coercion. Human smuggling and human trafficking are different crimes. Human smuggling is the illegal movement of a person across a border. Human trafficking is the illegal exploitation of a person. Human trafficking is about exploitation, not transportation. Human trafficking is a highly profitable crime and a violation of human rights. It can happen to anyone. Victims can be any age, race, or gender. But one thing they share, they are vulnerable to being exploited. There are different types of human trafficking, including sex trafficking, forced labor, and domestic servitude. Sex trafficking victims are manipulated or forced against their will to engage in sex acts for money. Sex traffickers might use violence, threats, manipulation, or the promise of love and affection to lure victims. Forced labor takes on many forms. Victims are made to work for little or no pay. Very often they are forced to manufacture or grow the products we use or consume every day. Victims of forced labor can be found in factories and farms, doing construction work, and more. Victims of domestic servitude are hidden in plain sight. Traffickers take their identification papers and travel documents to limit their freedom. They are prisoners, working as nannies, maids, and domestic help. Human trafficking is a hidden crime. Victims might be afraid to come forward, or we may not recognize the signs, even if it is happening right in front of us.
We need to bring the crime out of the shadows. St. Michael and All Angels has joined the fight against human trafficking. Through partnerships both here in Dallas and beyond, we will be doing work regionally and nationally to help support survivors of human trafficking, and we want you to be a part of this new ministry.
What I wish I knew back then was that it wasn't my fault, because I blamed myself. But now I know no child deserves to be victimized or exploited, ever, at all.